let you know. We are going to run right into our next presentation, which is World IA Day 2022 Community Research. And Grace Lau is here. I am going to give her introduction, but then we are going to play the recording, and then I will have Grace available to answer questions afterward. Does that work for you, Grace? Hello. It's good to see you kind of in person. All right, so Grace is an information architect with a focus on user research, product design, content strategy, and taxonomy. She's been a volunteer with World IA Day Los Angeles since 2016, and as a core team volunteer, a local organizer and sponsorship director. She also volunteers in the IA community as co-chair of the IA conference in 2021 and organized local meetups in Los Angeles area. She's been part of the global World IA Day team since 2018. She lives in the greater Los Angeles area with her husband, her son, and her cat. And I will get this video rolling here. One moment.
How ironic is it that the World IA Day website doesn't have a definition for information architecture? Or that such a global community, there are no pictures of people on the website? Yeah, we know. It's been 4 years since World IA Day has been set up as its own nonprofit charitable organization. Since then, the Global Board has been putting up their finances, played around with different fundraising platforms, started thinking about ways to keep World IA Day sustainable, stopped, restarted efforts on restructuring, redesigning the website. We've been focused on making sure our local organizers and their teams are supported in the planning of the annual World IA Day events. We made sure that World IA Day 2020 happened, that World IA Day 2021 happened, that World IA Day 2022 happened. We've hosted Future of World IA Day workshops across 3 major time zones in the summer of 2020. We told people that we were looking to change the culture, that we wanted to make sure that the new organization lives beyond its founding members, that the new organization supports a community that empowers leadership and learning. We talked about bringing more awareness to IA, defining IA as a practice, promoting our shared identity as a local but global community around information architecture. We talked about the possibility of hosting events throughout the year beyond the one day a year, and working on projects that apply information architecture frameworks that have a greater social impact. Throughout the past 4 years, we've created roadmaps and went through the motions of organizational design to define structures and dictate how, as a community, we'll collaborate and promote information architecture as a field. But these are all answers. We were quick to come up with solutions. And we didn't stop to consider if we were asking the right questions. Why are we here? Why does this World IA Day community exist? What do we stand for? As a new World Information Architecture Association, we needed to understand the larger context of the space we're in. World IA Day has become its own entity. But how is it connected to other communities? In December, we embarked on a generative research project to identify opportunities for World IA Association and to develop a strategy for how the organization can address gaps of opportunity in the IA community. A group of volunteers started out asking, what is community? What do people in the IA community understand is community? Through identifying what a community is, we can then understand who this community is for, who we are addressing, and what a professional association is in relation to what people consider a community. We focused on listening to people's stories about how they came across IA, what led them to be engaged or involved, and why they left certain communities or what their biggest frustrations were. Information architecture is a process of identifying, defining, creating structure, organizing, and figuring out the relationship between things and ideas. IA is about creating alignment. Through this IA superpower, we can begin to make sense, understand, and start to make recommendations for this community to consider. Having an understanding of people's expectations, we'll be able to start exploring opportunities World IA Association can then take to build a more stable community.
Our team designed a research plan that began with sending a screener survey out into the world. We used a combination of strategies to give us the best chance at reaching our global IA community. The information you'll hear today reflects the insights we've gathered from the responses we've gotten so far, including responses from some of you attending today. Social media proved to be the biggest contributor to this round of research, connecting us to more than half of the people we spoke with. Personal invitations followed that with 30% of responses, and we reached out to some of the veterans in the IA community as advisors so that we may learn from their experience of building a community around information architecture. We've also advertised this research project on the new World Information Architecture Digest, our monthly newsletter, and word of mouth. We heard from people across the world, including those from the United States, where a majority of our responses came from, and other countries, including Spain, the UK, and India. At this stage, we've gathered stories from 41 people that serve as the starting point for our user profiles. This includes people who are in different stages of life and their professional experience. We heard from mostly mid-career professionals who have established their expertise and skills in their field. Over half of our users associated themselves with the field of UX. In general, our users are largely in fields related to some aspect of design, information architecture, and technology. Out of the 41 user profiles, we had an opportunity to interview 20 of those people. Of the individuals our team has interviewed so far, all identified as a member of the IA community, with 40% of participants who have been mentors. We understand that using a screener comes with limitations. Currently, we're only reaching those in our network, and this largely reflects only those who can read and write English. However, our team has started conducting interviews in both Arabic and Spanish, and we're continuing to seek volunteers to help expand our language diversity. Despite the limitations, our team was able to identify clear themes from the shared experiences, which we will share today. Today, we'll talk about how people have defined community, why some participants have joined communities, what some of the pain points are, and why some left. We'll also talk about how some participants viewed the role of information architecture and how IA might change as a field.
What does it mean to be in a community? We asked our participants to describe what the community means to them. Here's what they share. For them, a community is a group of people who share the same interests and goals, coming together to learn and grow in their common and different interests, to meet others like themselves and help one another, and to share with others what they know. They are people who are interested in learning more about IA and the boundaries of disciplines that IA also reaches. They are looking to fill in the gaps necessary to move along their career, and they want to meet, network, and share their IA knowledge with others in the field. Our IA community has evolved through professional associations, conferences, and events. Others have used their IA skills to build communities adjacent to IA. In the end, they are all considered part of the IA community.
There are various reasons for people who choose to stay with their community or join a community.
Some of the participants have shared why they continue to join and stay with their community. Many participants have shared that they are interested in joining communities because of the resources shared in the discussions. Resources include job opportunities, learning opportunities, and career advices. These incentives led some of the participants to choose to become mentors and help out with networking. The importance of mentorship allows for career changers or new professionals to gain knowledge from experienced professionals and provide guidance to others. Participants have shared they were able to learn to collaborate with others, like developers, for example, because of these mentoring sessions. Some even choose to give back to the community by becoming a mentor to continue to share their knowledge. Some examples of mentorship opportunities include for those who are being new to the field and being mentored, to writing articles and books and speaking publicly at events and conferences, to also being a mentor to others, and then to advise mentors on mentoring. This cycle of mentoring is one example of how mentorship is essential to building and sustaining a professional community. Most importantly, the participants have shared that after their time with the community, the relations they have formed kept them there. They shared that the values of the connections they made in the mentorship and resources created networking opportunities for people. These networking opportunities go beyond just getting a job. People are building meaningful relationships and forming connections with others to support each other and continue to share different advices and resources.
So there are a wide array of community pain points that our participants brought up during our research. Within these pain points, we established several key themes. The common thread between these themes is that pain points appear when expectations are not met. Community members look toward its leadership to represent the community as a whole. When leadership stops addressing the concerns of the community members properly, no matter how big or small, members notice. Members lose faith in the community when they feel that they are not being heard. Membership dues are a pain point that can affect people differently depending on their standard of living or whether it's an expense covered by their employer. An affordable fee to some can be a huge fee to others. At the same time, there is also a resounding agreement that some kind of payment required for an event indicates that attendees will be committed. People who are willing to pay want to learn and share their experience. Meanwhile, people have a certain expectation that events and training that are paid will have a certain degree of quality. People come to communities to learn new ideas that they can put into practice in their own work. When the community discussions stop becoming fresh and focused, the experience no longer fits with their purpose. As a result, some members will leave that community in search of one that truly serves their goal. Other times, members become very invested in the community. They spend hours volunteering and connecting with new friends. However, at some point, burnout appears. It can be due to stress from the community, or perhaps a combination with other things happening in their life, like work, for example. Members simply realize that they're too exhausted to continue under a load of membership-related activities. Sometimes people simply have higher priorities than being a part of the community. Whether it be family, friends, or even other communities, sometimes a community just isn't high enough on a person's priority list to stay in that person's life.
We have also learned that the role of information architecture in the IA community itself is its biggest pain point. participants have told us about how the information architecture job title has been disappearing in the field, and how information architecture as a skill set has been submerged in the rise of user experience. We saw this in conference attendance numbers dropping from 800 to 300 and the number of World IA Day locations from 65 in 2015 to 30 this year. Participants have shared their disappointment with us that it's been 20 years and information architecture still doesn't have the backing or acknowledgement from companies, other disciplines, and organizations to make a real impact in the world.
We started this research questioning the purpose for World IA Day, questioning whether we have a clear why. We've confirmed that there is a shared interest, that we have had similar experiences, whether through discovering information architecture by accident, getting pulled into organizing events and conferences, or finding serendipity with the people we've met and the connections we've made. We confirmed that the IA community itself is not built around one person or personality, or one community, and that the boundaries of the IA community touch many, many other communities, from the architecture of buildings and homes to technical communication. With all this information, we began to see clear definitions of community and the types of relationships that people form. Connecting us together as a community are these events and conferences. We come together with a shared sense of camaraderie in building lasting, meaningful relationships. The context in which we meet and interact give meaning to our connections. They met at the Boston Logan Airport in '99 for the first IA Summit. They connected in the hallways at the IA Summit in Minneapolis in 2015. They were invited to speak at World IA Day, Michigan, or Zurich. They were speakers who loved the energy so much that they decided to organize the next World IA Day in their local city. Or that it was a tradition passed on at their school or meetup to organize World IA Day. World IA Day, and now association, is a part of the community that designs those contexts for these connections to emerge. Having this understanding of community and the types of relationships we want to build is one way we're using information architecture to facilitate connections. As we continue on exploring these relationships that people have with their communities, we'll uncover the wants, needs, and expectations for the IA community and opportunities for a professional association in this space to explore. All this is just a snapshot of what we've heard. We've just started on this research. We've talked with merely 20 of the people who have signed up through the screener so far. We're still analyzing the stories and figuring out what questions to ask next. We're revisiting the boundaries we set in the beginning of the project and questioning our research strategy. What have we missed? What would you add to this? What brings you to the IA community? What brought you to World IA Day? Thank you to all the people who have been part of the interview so far.
Thank you so much, Grace. This has been a very informative in learning about the research that you all did. Does anybody have any questions for Grace as I get off of, get my video on here?
You could tell that we really went down a rabbit hole with looking at all the emojis.
I loved the emojis, actually.
Nobody wanted to show their face.
Keith, I saw that you participated.
Yes, I heard from Keith. Hi, Noreen. Noreen also participated as well.
Hi, Noreen. I have actually been planning on it forever, Grace, but with the new job, it's been a little bit crazy. So I will do it. I promise.
We have it on our roadmap, our plan that we're going to reach out to all the local organizers and to have a good heart-to-heart about burnout, actually.
A lot of burnout comes with the pandemic. Melanie says, yes, definitely. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
And Jen said she thought it was interesting the no people on the website. Yeah, that is true.
It wasn't intentional though. I think that was because we were struggling so hard with just dealing with managing the site that we actually don't have time, we don't have people dedicated to looking at pictures and
Well, and I was just going to say, when you're an all volunteer organization, it makes it difficult to get enough people to do all of the things.
yes.
Right, exactly right, Keith. Cobbler's children have no shoes.
Yes. Yeah, no people, bad IA, like what? If you're an IA site, wait, if you're an IA conference event thing community and you have no good IA on here, you don't even talk about yourself. Like, where's the people involved? I thought that was so interesting that it's like, of course, duh, we do this so many years now. Don't we have this down? Like, no time.
Yeah.
People come and go.
Josh says, well, while I am sometimes also guilty of asking existential questions, why are we here? Why do we exist? Would it be beneficial to give a firm answer to those questions so you don't have to re-litigate them over and over?
Well, definitely. I think when we first looked at this project, we were thinking, oh yeah, we know what this is about, right? But at the same time, though, like what was our main reason? Because when the IA Institute dissolved, their mission was a little bit more advanced than what World IA Day was about. World IA Day was about providing free and low cost events to people who were able to go. And it was really more about diversity and diverse voices and really giving that whole like global sense to it. The IA Institute was great because it did have, it definitely like promoted languages, promoted different resources. But at the same time though, most of the board at that time was mainly focused in the United States and in Europe. So it definitely didn't have the whole sense of a global feel to it. And so it was lacking in that sense because it was only just, in the westernized countries. So we really had to reevaluate what we considered our mission and values, and like what is a direction, where do we want to go? We really had to reassess how important was it that we upheld some of the things that the IA Institute did, and at the same time, what are the new places that we wanted to go ourselves, just to make ourselves a little bit more distinct and aware of why we're taking the decisions that we're making. At the same time, I think, and I wasn't really involved with IA Institute, so I have to say that there was more of a much more hierarchy in the IA Institute. There was a board and there's like certain levels. And what we're trying to do with the World IA Association is they're trying to make it more holigarchy. You know the word that means everyone at the flat level. So we're still working on that. Yeah.
It says good answer, thanks. Grace is like, woo, it's not even 9 o'clock where I am. And you've probably been up for hours and hours.
I've been up since 1 a.m.
Oh my goodness.
Really?
Yeah, so folks, I don't know. For those of you who may not know, their presentation is being shown in 4 locations.
Just three. Yeah. But also because we have our global keynote, we had it 3 times today, and today starts with Cebu, so that they're
Right.
many hours ahead of us.
Does anyone else have any questions for Grace? Jen is shocked at your, Jen just gave us the little wow face because you've been up for so long.
This is my first cup of coffee in the past 48 hours.
You're kidding.
Yes, I've been slugging away with just water before,
I am impressed, Grace.
so I'm wide awake now. Anyway,
Right. You will crash and burn soon, I'm sure. Or as soon as you can, anyway.
cat naps. But yeah, the research that we did has been really ongoing. It was really important for us because we were trying to work on redesigning the website. Of course, it all has to do with the website. And then we realizing, oh, we changed a lot. We're not just, a day anymore. We have like a whole thing around this, like the website needs to reflect that, right? So we had to like reassess, what is our mission? What are our values? Who are we actually talking to right now instead of just the organizers, right? And the people who want to attend. So that was kind of the impetus. The thing that really started all of this was because we had to redesign the website. So that's why the whole beginning part was like, we started, we stopped, and we started again. And that was because of this project. We had to pause this a little bit just to make sure that we're asking the right questions. Because we were just charging full speed ahead. Like we know this. We just need to better, content strategy, do a content audit, figure out what the gaps are. Let's do a sitemap. No, never that easy. We had
UX
bigger questions to ask. Yeah.
Evangelize for UX research. It's important.
Exactly. Yeah.
Jen wants to know how many orgs do not think organic, that orgs will grow, still staying true to the core, but how have organizations and the people that need them have changed? Oh yeah, absolutely. There's, having been inside a company, even just in companies, having been inside of a company and working now as a service provider in both situations. Our clients now and my company then definitely do not look at their users' needs and their outside people's needs. And yeah, I agree with you with organizations, Jen. I think it gets even worse. Grace, what would you?
Yeah, I would say definitely, it definitely has been something of matter because I remember when I first graduated from library school, I was part of the LA chapter for ASIST, right? The Association for Information Science and Technology, and they had dues. You had to pay dues every year. And so as a new early career professional, I was like, oh, I got to do that. And then it was around that same time when meetup.com started, popped up in the landscape, and it was free for people. It was really easy for people to find groups to meet and to talk about things. And so it really made me question, like, why am I paying for this, right? We can just very easily just create a whole new like independent indie group meetups of librarians and archivists and just talk about stuff all day long and not pay dues. And so like that really changed things a little bit in terms of like really assessing like how do these organizations and associations think about like the whole grand of things in the landscape and how does it impact their methods or their resources or the ways that they want to, I guess, promote and advocate their agenda, right? So when I got involved with World IA Day versus the IA Conference, IA Summit, it really has a really night and day aspect to it, because when you go to a conference, you have to pay like $1,000, right? Even for IA Conference, it's relatively cheaper, but you still have to pay at least $100. It's still substantial for an early careerist. Versus for something like World IA Day, it's free. It's like $25 to attend, if anything at all, right? And it has a very different vibe to it. So when we're thinking about World IA Association, like what do we want to do? Like what is our thing? what is our identity? And the free thing is definitely something that we still want to promote because it's all about like, spreading knowledge, promoting information architecture to locations that don't even know what information architecture is yet, right? Maybe they're doing IA, just like, Jen was saying earlier with Brene Brown, like you don't have to say the word information architecture to know what IA is. Well, she didn't say that, but Abby Covert did. Yeah. Christina said, is IA trying to differentiate itself from UX, even name center information and its structure versus the user experience of that information? So I think the site makes sense to talk about info and how it's structured. But if you want to fold UX in, then add people and a more emotional appeal. So that's been a struggle, actually. And that's something that I think came out as one of the main themes through the research was, what is the role of IA? And some of the things was, how is IA different from UX, right? With user experience, it became super easy for people to fold IA under UX. But as others have also mentioned, IA is super interdisciplinary, right? Well, that's one of the main reasons why IA as its separate conference, as a different discipline from UX is much more appealable because there's so many different ways that people get into IA, right? And it's not just about design. It's not just about digital experiences. There are, and it's not just about the users as well. I think with the product experience, product design, center experience, CX, there's employee experience. There's so many different acronyms now with an X in it. And at the same time, it all becomes very subjective, right? In terms of like what you want to center on.
For sure.
I'm rambling. I don't know where I'm going at this, but like at some point the titles don't mean anything anymore. And it's really just, well, how do we just help people make sense of things? Just trying to get to the point. X and IX.
Grace, in Cleveland, there's an IX center. It's the convention center in Cleveland is called the IX Center. So I think that's where.
Oh, international.
Oh,
Exposition.
International Exposition. I had no idea, Josh. Thanks.
It's missing an X because I mean the other thing is like information architecture as a term is so technical, right? You still need to explain it, right? And people like, it's like, why information architecture? Can you explain that to me? Yeah. And then people have so many different ways of explaining it. That was also part of our state of IA survey that we do. Yeah, the struggle comes. It's real. The struggle is real.
True enough. Does anybody else have any other questions for Grace?
Well, I dropped the link in the chat. So if you want to schedule some time to participate in the study, in the research, please do. We're going to be continuously doing interviews through the rest of the year and also probably like every year and just forever anyway, just so we always have a continuous feedback loop with the community and making sure that we're always moving in a direction that makes sense for people. So looking forward to meeting some of you.
Thank you so much, Grace. We appreciate it so much. All right, friends, we are going to take a little bit longer break. We got done just a few minutes early, so we are going to go until 12:15, and then we will be back for our last presentation of the day, and really hope that you'll join us. Super interesting interview with the Director of Archives at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So we will see you shortly.